Let's get started. Hopefully, we have someone show up today. Kind of wait around for that a little bit, but I'm Richard Smith with Calibre Home Inspections, inspecting homes and protecting dreams. Just looking forward to answering anybody's questions that they might have about their house. Hey, Alexis, you're out there, right?
I'm here. Yes, I'm in the car, so I do not have my video on, but I am here for it.
All right. Well, thanks for being here. We've got, did you have any questions come up this week?
I don't think we had many questions. Which is a good thing. I have a lot of people say, "Hey, your guy was great. You sent them out. They were good. They were professional. They were responsive. Um, y'all found a lot of things that,
Yeah,
you
we got to
know,
find a lot of stuff.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the reports are long, but you want even a good house even has a long report, right? Because you find everything. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah. It's always something. There's
Yeah.
always, you know, we have to write every little thing that is damaged or broken.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it's scuffed and it's cosmetic, there's a fine line between there, but we got to stop somewhere.
Yeah.
And for instance, if we were to do cosmetic on new construction, the builder kind of disregards all the other code issues and the real broken stuff.
Yeah,
It
because they'll fix the
takes away
cosmetic
the
stuff.
weight.
It's easy.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Hey, I did have a question about wells
Okay.
this past week, and people wanted to know about their wells, and I just thought I'd just kind of cover wells this morning, and we can title it wells and put it if no one shows up. Um, so the wells do have, I mean, you just get it's free water, right? It's so you don't have to pay the water company and it's free, but you actually pay the power company to get the water, to pump the water out of the ground so you can use it. And
Plus,
it's
there's maintenance, right? Don't isn't Wells maintenance?
there is maintenance. There's not much. There's some things that you need to watch for to make sure it's still working properly, but real maintenance, you can test your water for a maintenance issue because you don't have the county inspecting it and monitoring it. I'm sure they got someone testing it before it goes out, and they do that probably daily. I don't know. Maybe I need to go on a field trip or something, ask somebody. Just just as something to relate to what we have. But of course, with municipal water, they recover water too with the sewer, and that recovered water or trapped water in reservoirs, um, they end up with bacteria, and they can clean it. It ends up with chemicals and pesticides and um, pharmaceuticals, and they clean it up. They try to clean it up. They can't clean it 100%. So there's trade-offs. But then with a well, you have trade-offs too, because you could have farm production runoff, those pesticides and those chemicals, and it goes into the ground, which is a filter in itself. So if you do have a well, you should test your own water. There's water testing kits that you can get at the box store. We can test it for you to give you a baseline when you start. It takes a few minutes, so there's a cost to it and a cost to the kit and so forth. But wells themselves, like any other appliance, has a an estimated useful life,
Mm.
so they won't last forever. And they're designed to last about 10 years. I got 12 out of my first one. That means this second one is probably going to go soon. And there's a cost to replace it. So that is the maintenance cost. And that varies on a number of things as far as the cost to replace. Some wells are very deep, some wells are shallow. Sometimes the pump is above the well. It's kind of unusual. On a drilled well, they're down anywhere from 2 to 900 feet, I have heard.
Oh, wow.
That's how deep the well is. Usually the pump goes halfway. So it's the pump is pulling half the water and it's pushing the other half. And once it pushes that water out, oh, before I forget, the cost of maintaining or swapping the pump because the pump went bad. Now there's a number of things you can check also to make sure it's the pump before you call a service guy. Uh, that is your filter. We'll get to that too. Um, your pressure tank could be clogged. There's a little stem that goes to your pressure tank that controls your pressure, and it appears like you're not getting any pressure. The pump is no good. If that holding tank bladder gets cracked and broken, and then it fills up that tank with water, then you have your well cycling on and off automatic all the time. Every time you turn the faucet on, it kicks on just for a second. It's constantly kicking on, and it'll wear your pump out. So you need to change that pressure tank. But the cost of mine, the last time I did it, which was almost 10 years ago, it was right about $1,000. So you have to budget for it and put it aside because when your well goes out, all right, you need to turn it back on. You need to take that money that you set aside and use it to replace your well pump. Now holding tanks go bad too, and you can swap out a holding tank. I like a bigger holding tank. We'll get to that. As far as the water goes, the often when you test it, the biggest thing they test for is coliform, which is which is farm feces runoff or too close to your septic tank. Now,
Mm.
if you have a septic tank in a well, which you probably do, usually you get septic tanks before people move far out enough to get a well. But a well needs to be uh, that needs to be monitored and permitted by the county because it needs to definitely be 100 feet, at least 100 feet away from your septic lines. County inspector will actually measure to make sure it's away from your septic lines. Not only that, he'll pull the permits from your neighbors and make sure it's 100 feet away from your neighbor's septic lines. We ran into that this week, and that's why I'm touching base with this.
Mm. So what
Um,
would somebody do like in that transaction? I mean, because it's not like it's a cheap fix.
no, I would definitely. Which would I move?
I mean, I feel like it would be
I'd probably move septic lines.
really.
Yeah, because you can truncate some area of the septic line that's close to it and then extend the others. You still need to get big equipment in there, and you still need to get the chamber system or the
I
bead
guess
system.
would it not depend on how long that well's been there? If they go out every 10 years, it might just be easier to do a new well, right?
It could be, but wells are very unknown. It's a gamble.
Um,
Anywhere from 4,000 to 14,000.
oh,
Septic lines, you know what you're doing, you know what you're in for, you know where you're going, you can see it, visualize it, and you just go and do it, and you pay the guy and he's gone and you're done.
hmm,
So,
makes sense.
all right, the if you're testing for that, then there I would I would go to YouTube or I'd go to the county extension and get a procedure for shocking your well. It's kind of like shocking your pool with chlorine. You send bleach down your well. Man, why would anybody do that? But it kills the bacteria. Yes. So it'll take a day and you'll be running a lot of water. But what you do is you put the bleach down your well. There's usually a cap on that 6-inch round wellhead. There's a cap, and you put your bleach down. This is general. This is not your procedure. You need to verify it yourself and go to the county extension and follow their directions. But basically, you put bleach down there, and then you pull water through the inside of your house. You turn on a fixture, and you wait till you smell it. You smell the bleach coming out of a hose bib, for example. Then you turn off that hose bib, and you know you got bleach in that line. You go to all your lines, the shower, the sinks, the toilet. You flush it a couple times, and you run that water in there until you smell like an indoor pool. You'll smell the
Hmm.
chlorine. You go, ugh. All right, you got water in the hot and the cold. That means um you've got bleach in your hot water line, your water heater, and you're cleaning out your own pipes and you're cleaning out the bacteria in the well. Excuse me. So you let that sit. You go and do an outside project, and you make sure I do it when my family's out of town. And before I do that, I take off water and or I'll go to the store and buy a couple gallons of good clean distilled water or spring water or something. I mean, what you have in your well is essentially spring water, but you gotta check it periodically for um, whatever you want to check it for. Coliform is the main thing people check it for, and that's what the county extension does. But you can test it. We like to test for uh, chemicals, alkalinity, the pH, um, pesticides. We check for um, lead. We check. We have a number of things, about 10 or 12 things we check for. So, and it's the way the way I would want to check my house. And that's the same test I use on my own house. All right. Um, After you have the water sitting in your pipes for an hour or two, hopefully everything is dead.
Hmm.
Then you turn it on. You just turn on everything. Well, I probably just turn on you can empty your holding tank, take the pressure off your holding tank and empty all the water in there. And that will allow fresh water to go in. Well, you just keep running the water until it becomes clean water and you don't smell the bleach anymore. Then you empty out your holding tank, take the pressure off it, and open up a valve, and it just keeps running for gallons. It takes a long time. And uh, then when you get clean water in your pressure tank, that'll take the longest to do. I'd probably use this opportunity to get the grit out of my water heater and then drain from the bottom of my water heater and clean that and flush that out. And that way you're getting clean water in your water heater. And then you can close that valve and put your water heater on. You can definitely turn the water heater off when you do this so you don't burn the elements out. If it's going to be empty for any length of time, that's any length of time, 10 seconds or more. Um, then you've got clean water from your well, which will take a while to get without chlorine in it. And then
Mm.
you start running it in your showers and fixtures and everything. Do one room at a time. It'll take 10 minutes and you'll smell the chlorine at first and then it'll just clear out. I did this when my wife and kids were out of town for a few days. And after that, you still smell like when you take a shower, you still smell like you're in a pool because there's just a residual chlorine. But your well is clean. Then you can check after a little bit of time. It's definitely clean, but after a little bit of time, you can check your well again, and it should be bacteria's levels should be pretty low.
Now, what if somebody wanted to do a pre-listing inspection and they were like, hey, let's do a water test?
Yeah.
while we're here. Um, if somebody was to do that with the bleach and the running of the lines and everything, if we go back in however long, would it show up anything that's in there? Would it clean out anything that would come back on our tests?
Oh, it should be good. Now, depending on how well you did it, no
Mm-hmm.
pun intended. I couldn't think of another word to fit in there. How
That's great.
good you did it, um, will depend on, and then the real water quality. But pretty
Mm.
much the coliform will be gone. There still might be chemicals. You won't get pharmaceuticals. You might get chemicals from runoff, farm runoff, or um, you might get lead that's naturally in the water. That can be filtered out. And then there's sulfur that's a problem. That's when you see the two tanks as filters.
I
And
feel like you can smell sulfur though.
yeah, you smell the sulfur. And what they do is they put a product, don't know what it is. They put product because carbon does not filter sulfur.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody thinks a carbon filter will do it, but indirectly it will. If you get the sulfur going through one medium, whatever that is, like I don't know what it is, there's a chemical reaction or bonding to it, so it creates a little bit different type of sulfur, and then it goes through the filter. I'm not versed in this, but I know it changes the water in the first one, and then the second one actually does the filtering and it'll take the sulfur out.
Hmm.
The sulfur attaches to something, and then it goes through, and then what it's attached to, the carbon filter will filter that out. So if you do have a rotten egg smell, and it's not your water heater dip tube, then uh, you could tell if you run the cold water only, and it still smells. And you have sulfur in your water, and you need the double filter system.
Hmm.
So then the water comes. The pump will pump it out of the well, and it'll go to the the go to the pressure tank. It's sent up there by essentially a compressor. There is a compressor switch, usually right next to the holding tank. That holding tank is a tank with a bladder, and it's half water and half air. And that air creates the pressure in all your pipes.
Hmm.
So the pump kicks on and it builds the pressure on. There's limit. It's called the limit switch. That limit switch will hit usually 60 psi. That's normal operation in a house, and that pressure in the house will go down, 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 down without kicking the pump on. And the bigger the tank, the slower the pressure goes down
Okay.
for the number of gallons that are being used. When it hits 40, that's kind of the minimum for residential. The pump will kick on again and it'll keep pumping until that pressure reaches 60. And then the pump will
Mm-hmm.
quit. It's just um, I relate it to someone using, this is probably the most recognizable example. It's compressor for a nail gun.
Mm-hmm.
That compressor will kick on, make a whole bunch of noise, and then it'll get up to pressure, and you can use your nail gun for a while, and you pop, 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 pop. Depending on whether you have a leak in your line, which a lot of people do, or you shoot X number of nails, then you have then that pressure in the tank will go down and it'll kick on again. It's the same thing. It's what's happening in your house with water pressure in your well. Now, once you get that pressure in your well, there's a one-way valve in your well that once that pressure gets up there into the tank and it's pushing water back out, it's trying to push it out of the tank. You have so it doesn't go back down into the ground, into the well. There's a one-way valve, the bottom um, where the pump is. So
Hmm.
once it pumps the water out, it stops the water from going back down into the ground. So good. You got pressure on your lines. So keeping that in mind, everywhere you have a water line, you have pressure. Okay. So if you
Okay.
see if you have a water line visible in at the wellhead, well, you can tap into that and put a little hose bib.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what we did. It doesn't have to be after the pressure tank because the water goes in and out of the same hole of a pressure tank. It doesn't go in one side and then out the other. So it's just constantly pushing water out. And if you want, for instance, if you want to fill a swimming pool, you get both your garden hoses. You don't want your well pump to keep cycling on and off. You get both your garden hoses and anything else you can tap into to pull water all at the same time. So you're once you're going to turn your hose bibs on and it's going to start filling the pool, that pressure gets down below 40 and the pump kicks on. Now, if you got two hose bibs wide open, your well that pressure tank may not reach 60 and your pump will just keep pumping and fill up your pool. And that's probably better for your pump, I understand. I'm not a pump genius. I just have a good idea about what's happening. Um, Now, if you have a well and a holding tank, that holding tank can be anywhere. It could be in a little well house outside. It could be in your basement or crawl space. It could be down in the ground. If you have a bored well, which is a big 3 foot diameter well, they can have that pressure tank in the ground. So it's a matter of just finding it. I like to keep my pressure tank and the holding tank essentially in the basement so it's not exposed to different extreme temperatures. But if you do have a well, you're probably going to need a sediment filter.
Okay.
Catches the light sand and what I call the rock dust. At first, we had to drill through a lot of rock to get down low enough to get to the aquifers down in the ground. Those, it's just like a drill bit, 6-inch diameter, but it's a drill bit essentially going through that rock created what I call rock dust. And when you put your
Hmm.
pump down there and you start pulling, you're pulling all that rock dust up and it catches in a sediment filter. And that's another thing that would cause your pressure to go down. Because if that water isn't going through that filter area because it's so clogged, then you just won't have pressure and you call a well guy. But all you got to do is change that filter. I've got a pile, I've got about 10 filters lined up, and then I can reuse them. So I'll use them for a little while, depending on, I just keep an eye on it. It's in a visible area in my basement, and I just change that periodically. It depends really on how much it's full. There's usually a little sediment at the bottom, and then
Yeah.
you can see it wrapped around the rest of it by the time I change it. When I change it, I put the filters aside, and I keep putting them aside, and um, some summer on a nice day when I want to get outside, I'll just get a garden hose to them and clean them out, trying to push it out from the inside and just trying to clean them.
Yeah.
Then I just put them back in a pile to reuse.
Might as well.
Yep,
Save some
yep,
money.
yep. Uh, Filter rock dust, 100 feet from the septic tank. I think I got all the notes I had on it. Um, but I really do trust. We have really good tasting water. We don't have to filter it. We do have a sediment filter. Um, we trust God's filter a lot more than county filters.
Yes.
Uh, you would think down in Atlanta you would have a lot of really good water, I heard at one time, I have no idea what it is now, but I heard at one time DeKalb County, unfortunately, where I grew up, has the worst water in the state. I'd rather not tell you what was in it, but
Ignorance is bliss sometimes.
that's right. It didn't taste bad. It's what I grew up with. Probably a little chlorine taste. And
But you know what? We all grew up drinking out of a hose.
oh yeah, you got to
So
drink something. And
our
as far as
immunity has
health
been
goes,
boosted.
you just need clean air and clean water, and you've gone a long way to help yourself stay healthy. So
Mhm.
that's my 2 cents on health right now. I think that's it. We've exhausted it and we've gone over. So we'll
Well,
stick this
well,
in there.
well, it seems that the meeting has come to an end.
It has. And what a deep subject it is. But we didn't go too deep. We just got our feet wet.
That's awesome.
All right, Richard Smith, Calibre Home Inspections. Call us if you need us. Inspecting homes and protecting dreams. See you next time.
Bye.